Hello and welcome to the HaskinCast Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, here with a fantastic guest for you this week. I really like Sterling Mire. She's such a cool lady, has some great stuff to share with us, some really interesting and fascinating stories, and I think you're just absolutely going to fall in love with her. Before we get to our interview with her, just a couple of notes. If you guys are fans of The Magician's Birthday, the famous album by Uriah Heep, I'm actually starting on that album on Friday on my other show, Uriah Heep, The Magician's Podcast, and check that out. I'm just finishing up Demons and Wizards this week, so a lot of great albums, a lot of great songs. So check that out on all the same networks that you can check this show out on, including my website. Just go to scotthaskin.com, and you can either click podcast, which will bring you to this show, or you can click Uriah Heep Podcast, which will bring you to that show. Simple enough, right? Apart from that, the only other thing I wanted to tell you guys was, so my new album, Entranced 2, is finished. I'm very happy to be almost done with it, for God's sakes. I am in the final mixing and mastering stages. I've mastered it once, found a bunch of things that I didn't like in the mix after I mastered it, and then I'm going back and fixing those things. But it'll be out around the middle of February. Kelly over at OutsideTheBox.photo has done an absolutely beautiful job with the graphic art, and of course the amazing lettering by Rebecca Poole at dreams2media.com. That's dreams, the number 2 media.com. I'm so blessed to be able to work with these people. They're just amazing, full of energy, really excited to work on projects with me, and they do an amazing job. I could not ask for better. So thank you, ladies, very much. And that's pretty much all I had to say this week. Let's just get right to the interview with Sterling. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited to have my guest this week on. She is a fantastic author, and just in the little bit that I've been able to speak with her, she's really lovely too, which I like. The author of the AOM System, Manifestation Mastery in 30 Days. Let's welcome Sterling Mire to the show. Sterling, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fabulous, Scott. Thank you so much for having me here on the show. I'm really excited.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I'm really excited too. And I'm glad that we were able to get together for what has turned into Health Awareness Month, really, on the show. And you've written this wonderful book. It sounds so simple, though. And I think there's so many things that have come before it that have not really worked for people. How are you making this happen?
Wow, that's a really great question, because there is a lot of information out there that really kind of falls flat, or people just end up with unanswered questions. And that's, that was my situation. My situation, having delved into the manifestation process, how to have an extraordinary life, and learning as much as I could, even starting as early as 13 years old, when I really started I call formal training, because I started reading all of these books out there, such as my first one was Maxwell Maltz's Psycho-Cybernetics. And I just found that everything I got my hands on was great information, and it was great ideas and great concepts. But I was always left wondering, and I had unanswered questions, or I'd run into roadblocks. I'd get discouraged. I'd get disappointed. I'd give up. So what I did is I created this system for myself 20 years ago. Well, let's see, it's going on 22 years.
Wow.
So I started this, and I actually put together this system, and I experimented for 5 years. I spent 5 years really seeing I wanted to find out the consistency. It was working so beautifully. I, being the healthy skeptic, wanted to continue to, challenge the system to see if it really came up in spades every time, and it did. But I didn't stop there. I got a test group, like a blind test group of about 15 people, and I had them apply it to their lives. And the results were, again, phenomenal. And it was so exciting to see this. And that's kind of how it started, really. I just thought everybody should really have access to this. And I've been working with corporations and A-list celebrities and one-on-one clients of all walks of life, of every kind of person, for nearly a decade now. And this journey has led me to creating this book, because it's my intention that everybody have access to this system, because it is so powerful and it works every time. And I've discovered all the things that were missing. It's airtight. It's foolproof. It's, it's step by step. It's a no-brainer. And it just works for everybody every time. And I'm so excited about that, because everybody wants to have an extraordinary life. Everybody wants to heal the past. Everybody wants to bring into fruition everything that they can conceive of, all of their dreams. And why not?
Right. Well, and I think that well, first of all, I'm really glad that you did a lot of testing before you put it out there, because it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that people have a little bit of success and they write a book and they say, this is how you change your life. And then it doesn't, it falls flat for most people, like you were saying earlier. I like the fact that you're coming into it with the ability to say, here's what I did. Here's what I've worked on for the past 10 years. Here are my subject matters data backing all this up. Now you can do it too. That's a much better sell for me.
Right. Like, it's solid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me too. Look, I'm not only, the creator of this system, I'm also the participant.
Right.
I'm also, like anybody else out there in the audience that is interested in, how to have an extraordinary life, the manifestation process, law of attraction, what is energy, or, whatever it is that people are interested in, that is along these lines, and that's why it was really important for me that it consistently, it's just a flawless system. And it is, and it's really, that's where my passion comes from too, when I speak, because I'm in awe of it. And I'm in awe with my clients every time they come back to me, in our sessions, and they report this, they report that. And even though I've heard these extraordinary, miraculous results, because I've worked with so many people, it still amazes me. And I'm still absolutely delighted by it.
I think that's the real passion for you, when you can still be in awe of something that on one level doesn't amaze you anymore, because you know exactly what it's supposed to do. You see it working. You're like, okay, great. People are doing it. But on the other level, to be like, I'm so excited that you're getting where you want to be, and I've watched your journey from point A to point B. That's just got to warm your heart.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people have literally changed, they look different. They sound different. Not only are their results different in every single area of their lives, career, finances, travel and adventure, relationships, health, every area that makes up our lives. And these people are getting results immediately as they start. They're already getting tangible results. Dee Wallace, the actress from The Mother and E.T. and the star of Cujo, she wrote the preface of the book. And that's one of her quotes, is it starts working the minute you start to, the foreword, not preface, the foreword. And she says she starts working the minute you start working it. And it's very, very true. And I had a client of mine, it's just, her life is so changed. Like, everything is completely different, all for the better, everything that she's ever wanted. And this was only within 2 weeks.
That's amazing. Amazing. And I was going to mention that about Dee. She's been on the show before. She's a dear friend and just a lovely soul. I'm really glad that you two work together on that part. But it seems to me that a lot of people, and again, I realize I'm generalizing when I say this, but it seems like a lot of people will try something new. They'll try to improve their lives. Let's say a diet, for example, and they'll do good for a couple of days, and then they'll eat a piece of cake because they were at a company birthday party or whatever circumstance. And then they'll say, well, that diet didn't work. And then they won't try any other diets because they just get it into their head that none of it works. Why are we so stubborn to open ourselves up to possibility and say, well, that didn't work at that time. Maybe at another time that would work, or something else similar would work?
Well, it's the level of operating with integrity. People are human beings. They fall out of integrity, like the person who fell off their diet. This is part of human nature. However, I will say this. One of the things that my clients get out of using this system is that they're able to create their ideal day every single morning and witness it, experience it happening. At the end of the day, they reflect and they go, oh my gosh, 90%, 100% of everything I created and my experience of it happened. So then I get clients saying, I'm afraid not to do the system because it works so well.
Right.
So, that's what they tell me. And so, in fact, once in a while, my client will be like, oh my God, I didn't do this part of your system today, and my day was a mess. And I go, but see, there's value in that. I said, you got to do a little test. You got to be a little scientist there. You got to A/B it. What if I, do the AOM system? What if I don't? What happens? And so there's value in that. And therefore, they're even more committed to making sure nothing gets in the way of doing that part of the system. So it's, they get that learning process. But I have clients coming back to me that, have been using it for years and years and years, and they've gotten their entire life out of it. I mean, people have, cured themselves of incurable diseases. People have come to me with absolutely nothing. And then they've become like a CEO of multiple companies all over the world. They have a beautiful family and wonderful, spouse and dream house. I mean, this happens all the time. And the stories are phenomenal and they're almost unbelievable, but they are true. They're true.
Well, and what a bigger compliment to you than to say, I've been using your system, my life's been great, and the one day I didn't, it fell apart. That's just as high of a compliment to me as it is to say, hey, I've been using your system and I'm happy.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it gives them an opportunity to see the difference for themselves because it's all experiential learning. People's belief systems, this is why it goes back to that question that you were talking about. Like, why do people have a hard time with change? Well, their belief system keeps it in place. Unfortunately, their belief system is faulty and it doesn't serve them. However, we take care of that in part one. Part one is where the belief systems start to change. And when you're believing and your perspective has changed and your beliefs are different and they serve you and empower you, you don't really go back from there.
Sure. Well, once you see something, you can't unsee it unless you do everything you can to deny it. I would imagine that taking responsibility for your actions is another challenge that you face with most people.
Taking responsibility, well, that's one of the things that people really get out of part one is they get to reap the benefits and see the value of taking responsibility in that part, that early part. And so this gives them their access to unlimited creative abilities and powers that, we're kind of aware of. We're aware of it. Like, well, there'll be an amazing feat or there'll be this extraordinary thing happen. We're aware of it in that kind of way. It's too far and few in between when it doesn't have to be. So it's kind of like it's kind of random, but it's not actually random because there's actually a combination of things that had to come together to produce that result. And that was part of why I started this system is because I had, a most incredible, miraculous thing happen to me and it stopped me in my tracks. And this is what boosted my impetus to create this system. And I go, wait a minute, So there was a recipe, there was something that happened here. Now, if I can really clarify what that is, I'll be able to produce these magical and miraculous results on a daily basis. So while it was fresh, I stepped back and I go, what was present? How did this come about? How did this result get produced? So I talk about it in the book as well. Talk more about how that came about, but it is really exciting. There's no reason why people can't have the most extraordinary life. And I don't even care about the challenges or circumstances that surround you, such as the common one right now, which is COVID and shutdowns. This doesn't matter. I've had clients all year since COVID's happened. Never once do we talk about this because they're still living an extraordinary life. It doesn't factor in. It just never becomes a part of our conversation because it's never anything that stops them or interferes with them bringing about magical, miraculous results. So that's the problem that we're facing. And this is actually a great challenge for people because they're able to start to see how they are accessing from the outside versus the inside, and allowing that to determine their choices and what they can and cannot do and what is possible and what is impossible. So it's actually right now is a great time for people to be challenged to start to rethink things and go, wait a minute, am I going to allow these circumstances or these challenges to tell me what I can and cannot do? Maybe there's a better way. Maybe I don't have to. Maybe it's time for everybody to hit that rock bottom and go, there's got to be a better way, and that hopefully will open up the conversation to exploring for them the AOM system, because that is the better way. I have so many clients that come from experiences with therapy, or they've tried this, they've tried that, they've tried everything under the sun. And they said, this is the only thing that ever worked for them. And I said, well, good for you for not, stopping your search. And they will say, well, I was determined. It's like, good, it works. Works it. You found me that way. Yeah.
Sure. But aren't too, if in thinking of how our perception works, the more that we spend time on things that we're afraid of or that we don't want in our lives, like say all the talk about COVID and that, our attention then becomes that, and then that becomes what comes into our life, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's extraordinary. I mean, COVID doesn't factor into my existence at all. It's just not a part of my life.
Right.
And, and it's not because I didn't have it, because I did. I had COVID in July,
mm-hmm.
In case somebody's thinking, well, maybe it's because you haven't had it.
Right.
Yeah, I did, and because I believe that we're able to be much more powerful than our circumstances. When I had COVID, it lasted for 3 days and it was very minimal. And actually, in my life, I've had way, way worse flus. But I know that we can heal ourselves. I remember distinctly when this happened many years ago. I was talking to a very enlightened friend, and I said, oh, I think I'm getting sick. I said, I'm getting a sore throat, and I'm really feeling weak, and this and that. And he said, well, when do you want to be well? And I thought, well, I'm open-minded. I'll play. I'm open-minded. So I said, okay, I'll be well by tomorrow at noon. And he said, great, call me tomorrow at noon.
Mm-hmm. So
I remember being on the phone for that whole hour that preceded before that phone call to him. And I remember being on the phone and making calls. And I was like, every 15 minutes, I'd start to notice my throat was feeling better. Like my symptoms were disappearing. And kid you not, by the time it was noon and I had to make that call, I had no symptoms and I never got sick.
Wow.
And I was forever changed by that experience, because I realized how incredibly powerful that we truly are. And it's time for people to really start to tap into that power. But they need tools. They need a manual for life. They need access to something that's going to give it to them. And I'm so proud to be able to produce the AOM system for the public. Because I think, I just watched a documentary the other night about the scientist was talking about how for so long we thought genetics played a part or environment played a part or this and that, but it's not. It's more of an inside job as far as how our life is. What is life anyway? Let's break it down. It's a series. All it is a series of creations and experiences. You create something, you experience it. You create a meal, you experience it. You create a thought, you experience it. You have a conversation, you experience it. You take a shower, you experience it. It doesn't matter. Every second of the day, you're creating something and you're experiencing it. So doesn't it behoove us to be masters at the manifestation process? Doesn't it behoove us? Shouldn't this be number one in school? Shouldn't this be the number one priority in our lives? I think so.
I think so too. And it's interesting that you bring up the genetics because, of course, I grew up believing that, so-and-so in your family had cancer, so there's a good chance that you're going to have cancer and those sort of ideas. And it seems to me in more recent years that the reason that pattern happens is because we're given the mindset that it's going to happen. So we just accept that and that becomes part of our thought.
Yes, very, very true. Oh, yeah. Well, we create our whole world between the ages of approximately 3 and 17. Our life is a makeup of relationships. So we have a relationship to, our car. We have a relationship to our home. We have a relationship to our tennis shoes. We have a relationship to everything. And if our relationships are empowered and they've been healed, then we're going to have a great place to start from. And that's what we do in part 1. So between those ages of 3 and 17, we're actually creating our relationship to everything in the world, everything we perceive. And we're creating this either through our own creative little imagination, or we're doing it by buying into what somebody has given us. I remember being a child and feeling I was quite enlightened as a child. But I remember going, wait a minute, what do I know? My parents know more than I do, that kind of thing. And they've been around longer. I remember having this conversation word for word. They've been around longer. They must know the answers. So I'm not even going to consider what I think. And I'm going to take on whatever they tell me. Oh boy, problem, So it starts around 3 because we start to learn simple language. We learn right and wrong, good and bad, that kind of thing, simple things. And this is how we start to create our world. And then it gets reinforced over years. And then we get older until the point where we go, we get resigned and go, that's my lot in life. And there's nothing I can do to change it. And that's a very sad thing because that doesn't have to be. So, that's really what it comes down to. And that's what people get to do in part 1 that's so exciting is to transform all of these debilitating blocks that have stopped them, and they see the truth, and the truth really sets them free. And now they look back on their past traumas and disappointments and they go, you know what? I just have peace and acceptance. I don't feel any negativity. I just have peace and acceptance. That's a beautiful thing.
That's a very beautiful thing. I similarly growing up, I felt that a lot of things that I was told or that I experienced or was led to believe, they didn't seem right to me. I didn't know what the answer was, but I knew it wasn't what I was experiencing. So I think I've always had a bit of an inquisitive mind when it came to that. But then, life gets in the way. You allow it to just take over, and you don't really think about the things that you've put into your world as fact. So I think smashing that foundation and rebuilding a new one is a great place to start. It's really the only place to start.
That's right. And that's a lot of books on the subject of, making your dreams come true. Either overlook that important element, that critical element of really coming to terms and making peace with everything in the past, or they mention it, but they don't tell you how to do it. It's very de-emphasized. And the problem with that is that if that's not handled or taken care of, you're not going to be able to move forward in your life the way that you want. It's you've got to change that. Who was it? Albert Einstein, who said, you've got to change the consciousness that which created the problem to find that solution.
Right. Right. Well, and that's very true. And it seems to apply in so many things. And, we live in a world where you're told if you have something wrong, you go to a doctor, you get medicine. They don't talk about the fact that medicine has been created in a factory. There's all these additives to make it do something, or even just to form into the right delivery method, whether it be a pill or a capsule. There's all these things in there you don't need. And then you hear things like, well, if you took this pill, you might have a lawsuit for just about everything that comes on the market. I think, obviously, if we can heal ourselves, why are we looking to anyone else to do that for us?
That's right. Well, this is the society that we've created. The misconceptions, amongst many others, that we've created is this idea that the answers are outside of us, that the solutions are outside of us, and they're not. And that's why I've had so many people come to me who have gone to therapy for 15 years or longer, and they go, where have you been all my life? Oh my gosh. And the thing is that my clients, they come to me and they work with me, and then I give them the tools so they can continue on for the rest of their lives. This is an investment for the rest of one's life. And they don't have to continue to be on a subscription base to have it work for them. And I remember I spoke to this business manager who she said, oh, your model's all wrong because your clients, they're well and they don't need you after a period of time. And I go, well, that's the way I want it to be.
Right.
And I want my clients to excel, and I want them to become masters at manifesting. And I want them to not need me, so, and who does that anyways? My business is so transparent. My clients even say, give people my names and number if anybody wants to talk to me about this system, because I love it so much, and it really needs to get out there. And it is wholly unique. It's totally revolutionary, and it totally works every single time for every single person. And you're a great fit, if you're a human being and you want positive change. Right.
And so many of us really do want that nowadays, more so, I think, than ever. I think a lot of people used to just accept life as it was and go through it like they were going through the motions. But I like the fact that you are wanting to work yourself out of a job with each client, because that, again, is what I feel is the opposite of, say, the medical community, where it's really about, okay, well, we've done this, so let's get you back in and see what else we can do for you. And let's keep you coming in the office and, never get rid of you so I can keep making money off of you. It's really turned into more of a business than the idea of helping people anymore.
That's right. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that. It's in every industry, really. And they want you to keep you dependent on them. Mm-hmm. When, that really doesn't serve anybody. And I love hearing from my clients after multiple years and them saying, I'm still working the system. It's working great for me, and I love it. And thank you again for creating it. Hey, there's billions of people on the planet, and each and every person on the planet, which could keep me very busy for a long time. Yes. But because I do work with clients all over the world, I'm worldwide based.
Sure.
So, there's billions of people, and each and every one of those people deserve to actually live an extraordinary, amazing, dream-fulfilled life. They really do. Every single person. No one should be excluded from that. And that's part of the reason why I created this book, too, is because, if people didn't want to do the video series or the group sessions or the one-on-ones, and they didn't want to be put on a waiting list or this or that, there are no excuses. Like, you've got this. And I've provided it in so many different modalities that it fits for everybody. And so that's why I'm like, hey, no excuses, guys. Nothing can stop you but you, because here it is. I'm giving it all to you. The keys to the kingdom.
Yep. And just for the audience, too, to let you guys know, of course, as always, the links are down in the show notes. Now, I have to ask you before we wrap up, I never had the pleasure of meeting this very talented actor, but I understand that you had some involvement with Gary Oldman.
Well, he was actually, me producing him out of thin air in my home in Laurel Canyon was one of the extraordinary events that happened that had me look further into how to create this system so that I can produce these extraordinary results every time. I mean, there he is standing there at my place going, how did I get here? I was just compelled to be here. I don't do this. I don't just show up to people's places that I've never met before. But I felt so compelled to be here. At the time I went to Arts Magnet High School in Dallas. And so I was a full-time actress, and I moved to Los Angeles to expand on my career. And so it was at that time where I wanted to learn more about the craft of acting. And I really wanted to have a conversation with him. He's the one that I really felt I resonated with his style and I could learn a lot from. And that was why I had requested for him to come and pay me a visit so we could talk about this craft of acting. And like I said, to have somebody stand there and go, I don't even do this. I don't even know, but I just had to come, told me that we are incredibly powerful creators. And we had a wonderful time, but his manager was absolutely like dead set against it. And I was like, wow, like we can really create anything we truly want. We just have to understand this manifestation process. And one of the other things that I created was a free black BMW convertible. When this is when I was creating my system, I was testing it. Mm. And I said, do we need to take into consideration limitations or constraints? And which people do. Oh, I can't do that. I don't have enough money. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not whatever. I don't know the right people, this and that, blah, 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 blah. All these excuses, these limitations and constraints that people take into consideration when it comes to making choices in their lives. So when I created a free black BMW convertible, that forever changed my idea of what is possible and do we need to take into consideration or constraints. These limitations that we impose upon ourselves, do they really exist? No, they don't. And at that point, after that, never again did I entertain the idea about a limitation or constraint or perceived limitation or constraint. I just create. And it shows up. And the universe just does all the details, does all the footwork. I just simply state what I want. And that's it. And then it just shows up. And I don't even know how that's going to happen. I don't need to know. That's another thing that's so beautiful. People realize they can put a lot less effort into their life to produce the exact results that they want.
Yeah. Well, you have to step outside of the ego and trust that what you put out there is going to come back. I think we tend to, overthink things or try to control things a little too much. And that's why a lot of times it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah. Well, exactly. Well, that's another thing. You don't have to figure out the details, mm-hmm. and you don't have to push. You can just allow things to come and drop into your lap, and they do.
Right.
We've got all this backwards, so all this struggle doesn't need to be at all. In fact, it was never meant to be. We've just been handed, the wrong information. So you can just simply allow things to just come to you. Your job is just to clarify what it is that you want. And then, by working this system, it keeps you on track. And that allows the things that you want to just show up. And then you go, oh my God, the way this came into fruition, I couldn't have imagined this in a million years. It was so creative, mm-hmm. how it all came about. Who'd have known? And that's when you realize, I don't need to figure this out. I don't need to figure out how to make this happen. I can just allow it to happen.
Excellent. Well, I highly suggest that everybody go down to the links in the show notes and check out this system because it's absolutely fantastic. Sterling, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your schedule to come and talk to me today. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you, Scott. So have I, and I'm so thrilled to have been on this show. And thank you very much. I'm so excited about the AOM. It's a new year, guys. You know, don't listen to too much media. Don't protect your space. Protect your space. Don't let all this media, inform you.
I have done everything I can to shut off just about every bit of media I can. I mean, obviously, with the show and all, I have to be on social media to an extent, but I very, very much limit what time I spend on there. But I don't, like when I log into my homepage to check my email, I just go straight to the Google page. I don't have anything come up that shows me any news links. I've minimized and blocked as much of that as I can. I just don't need it in my world. It doesn't help me get where I want to be in my day.
No, it doesn't. And the information can be distorted. I mean, people need to remember, that the information they're getting from the media, their job is to sell you tickets. Mm-hmm. And they'll do what they need to do, because to get your attention. And that's their job, is to get your attention. So embellishing things, distorting things, it happens all the time. And now I think a lot of people are aware of it, but they're still kind of going back to it because maybe it's out of habit and trying to get informed through the media. But take it with a grain of salt. Do your own research. And that's very important. Not hearsay, not research like, well, I heard somebody tell me this. That was my own research. That's not your own research. And I got to say, a lot of people are really hiding right now. They don't need to be. You can be having the most extraordinary life right now, regardless of what's going on in politics, regardless of what's going on in the world. There's always been things going on in the world. There always has been. Sure. But it seems like there's more because, like I said, the media is blown up so much and people are accessing information the way that they are, that it makes it bigger than life. So I say protect your space and remember that you can have any life that you want, regardless of the circumstances happening in the world or happening in your life. Protect your space, do the AOM system, and have an extraordinary life.
Oh, I love that. We could not have ended on a better note. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Scott. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. My pleasure. You keep doing the things that you do that make the world a better place, and come back and see us again or talk to us again.
I would love that. You can count on me.
Sweet. You take care, Sterling. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, you know me, I just love people that are passionate about what they do and who can really just, no matter how long they've been doing it, sound like they've just gotten into the field with that wide-eyed excitement. And that's definitely Sterling. Check out her book. And I've got the links in the show notes to it. I just picked it up on Kindle. Have not had a chance to read it yet, but it is something that is definitely on my list. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of the HaskinCast Podcast. Please remember to leave let me ask for reviews after I can't speak. Please remember to leave your reviews and star ratings on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, wherever you're listening. I will most likely see them on Podbean or Apple Podcasts /iTunes. Those are the ones that come to me, to my field of vision. So thank you guys. Have a great week. We'll be back next week with another special guest. Cheers.